Number 25. Watching Match Game. Match Game dominated daytime television in the 1970s, and wives scheduled their afternoons around it. The game show format featured celebrity panelists making risque double entendres that pushed the boundaries of acceptable television. Women found it both entertaining and scandalous, gathering around TV sets during the 2 p.m. slot. The show provided a brief escape from household routines while folding laundry or preparing dinner. Online commenters remember it fondly alongside other game shows of the era, calling it a staple of 70s entertainment. The appeal was simple. It was lighthearted, slightly naughty, and didn't require full attention. Host Gene Rayburn's microphone became iconic, and regular panelists like Charles Nelson Riley and Brett Summers felt like familiar friends visiting daily. The show's format was brilliantly simple. Contestants tried to match answers with celebrities, creating moments of genuine surprise and laughter. The downside was the time commitment and the repetitive format that some found tiresome after years of daily viewing. The show also reinforced certain gender stereotypes through its humor, with questions often playing on traditional male-female dynamics. Number 24. Using CB radios. Citizens band radios became household items in the mid-1970s, and wives used them for communication while running errands or coordinating carpools. The technology felt futuristic and practical, offering a way to stay connected before cell phones existed. Women adopted CB lingo like 10 to 4 and breaker breaker into everyday conversation, creating a shared language that felt both modern and community-oriented. The radio craze peaked during the gas crisis, when drivers used CBs to locate stations with fuel, transforming individual drivers into an informal information network. It created an unexpected sense of camaraderie among strangers, helping each other navigate daily challenges. Wives could check on road conditions, get traffic updates, or simply chat with other drivers during long commutes. The culture spawned movies like Smokey and the Bandit and songs like Convoy that celebrated this new communication freedom. The novelty wore off quickly as the channels became crowded and the conversations repetitive, with Channel 19 becoming particularly chaotic with truckers and amateur users competing for airtime. Privacy was non-existent, and anyone could listen to your transmissions, making personal conversations impossible. Number 23. Attending roller disco. Roller disco merged two 1970s obsessions, roller skating and disco music, into a uniquely time-stamped activity. Wives attended sessions at local rinks, often bringing their children for family outings that combined exercise with entertainment. The activity provided exercise disguised as entertainment, with synchronized skating routines set to Donna Summer and the Bee Gees, creating an almost hypnotic atmosphere. The disco ball, the organ music interludes for couples to skate, and the carpeted snack bar serving nachos and soda defined the complete experience. It was affordable recreation during economically uncertain times, with admission and skate rental costing just a few dollars for an entire evening. The social aspect was significant. Regulars formed friendships, and skilled skaters became local celebrities showing off their moves. Special themed nights like Ladies' Night or Backward Skating Night added variety to the routine. The downside included bruised knees, rental skate odor that no amount of deodorizing spray could eliminate, and the occasional collision on crowded rinks that could result in serious injuries. The sound system was often painfully loud, and the flashing lights triggered headaches for some patrons. Number 22. Driving a Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto became the economy car of choice for many 1970s families, and wives drove them for grocery runs and carpool duties throughout the decade. The vehicle was affordable and fuel-efficient during the gas crisis, making it practical despite its growing reputation for problems. Online commenters remember the Pinto's tendency to explode in rear-end collisions, a design flaw that became infamous through lawsuits and investigative journalism. The gas tank's position made it vulnerable to rupture, and Ford's cost-benefit analysis valuing settlements over redesign became a business ethics case study. Others recall severe rust appearing within 4 years of purchase, showing the poor build quality of 1970s American automobiles that couldn't compete with emerging Japanese imports. The car seated 4 uncomfortably and offered minimal trunk space, making it inadequate for larger families or significant shopping trips. It handled poorly in winter conditions and lacked air conditioning in base models, making summer driving miserable. The interior was Spartan with vinyl seats that burned in summer and froze in winter. Number 21. Collecting mood rings. Mood rings became fashion accessories that supposedly revealed emotional states through color-changing stones, blending jewelry with amateur psychology. Wives wore them as conversation starters and pseudoscientific novelties that sparked discussions about feelings and self-awareness. The rings contained liquid crystals that responded to body temperature, shifting from black to blue to green as fingers warmed or cooled. Users believed the colors indicated moods: blue for calm, green for active, amber for unsettled, and black for stressed or anxious. The appeal was the mysticism combined with affordable jewelry, usually costing just a few dollars at department stores or novelty shops. Online commenters list mood rings alongside other strange 1970s trends like wall-to-wall carpeting and kitchen appliances in avocado green, placing them firmly in the decade's cultural landscape. The rings stopped working after a few months when the liquid crystals degraded from exposure to water, soap, or simply age. They were costume jewelry masquerading as mood-detecting technology, with no scientific basis beyond basic thermodynamics. Some found the constant color changes distracting, while others were disappointed when the rings contradicted their actual emotions. Number 20. Cooking with avocado green appliances. Kitchens in 1970 featured appliances in avocado green, harvest gold, and burnt orange, creating color schemes that defined the decade's domestic aesthetic. Wives cooked daily meals using refrigerators, stoves, and mixers in these earth tones that manufacturers promoted as warm and natural. The colors were meant to coordinate with the decade's broader design philosophy, emphasizing organic, natural elements in contrast to the chrome and white of previous decades. Online commenters remember kitchen appliances in strange colors as defining the era, with avocado green being the most common and most dated. The appliances themselves were durable and repairable, unlike modern planned obsolescence models, with mechanics who could actually fix broken components rather than replacing entire units. A 1970s refrigerator could run for 20 years with proper maintenance. They were also energy inefficient by modern standards and lacked safety features we now consider standard, like automatic shutoffs or child locks. The heavy metal construction meant they were difficult to move during cleaning or remodeling. The colors dated quickly, making kitchens look old-fashioned by the early 1980s, when white and almond became the new standard. Replacing an entire kitchen of colored appliances was expensive, so families lived with outdated aesthetics for years, unable to afford the upgrade. Number 19. Listening to Casey Kasem's American Top 40. Casey Kasem's weekly countdown show became appointment radio for millions, and wives listened while doing housework on Sunday mornings and afternoons. The program ran for 4 hours every Sunday, counting down the top 40 songs based on record sales and radio play, creating a comprehensive survey of current popular music. Kasem's warm delivery and personal stories about artists made listeners feel connected to the music and the musicians behind it. He shared trivia, dedication requests from listeners, and long-distance dedications that added human interest to the chart positions. The show provided cultural currency. Knowing the top songs meant understanding what teenagers and young adults cared about, helping mothers stay connected to their children's interests. It was free entertainment that required only a radio, making it accessible regardless of economic status. The countdown format created anticipation as listeners waited to discover which song claimed the #1 position each week. The downside was the time commitment of 4 hours and the repetitive commercial breaks that interrupted the flow. Wives couldn't skip songs they disliked or replay favorites, making the experience linear and inflexible. The show sometimes featured music that parents found objectionable, creating household tensions. Number 18. Playing Pong. Pong arrived in homes in 1975, and wives played the primitive video game with their families, experiencing interactive electronic entertainment for the first time. The game featured 2 paddles and a square ball bouncing across a black and white screen, with simple controls that anyone could master immediately. It was revolutionary because it brought interactive entertainment into living rooms, transforming television from a passive to an active medium. The gameplay was simple enough for anyone to understand, but engaging enough to hold attention and create genuine competition. Families competed for high scores and developed strategies, like putting spin on the ball or forcing opponents into difficult angles. The technology seemed miraculous despite the crude graphics, representing humanity's first widespread experience with computer gaming at home. The console connected directly to television sets, requiring no additional monitors or equipment beyond the game unit itself. The downside was the limited gameplay that became boring after a few sessions, with no variation or progression to maintain long-term interest. The console was expensive at around $100, a significant investment for families already stretched thin economically. Number 17. Using a mimeograph machine. Mimeograph machines produced copies for school events, church bulletins, and community newsletters that wives organized as volunteers. The process involved typing on a wax stencil that transferred ink to paper mounted below, creating a master that could produce hundreds of copies. The distinctive smell of mimeograph fluid became permanently associated with freshly distributed documents in schools across America. The technology was messy and labor-intensive, but cheaper than professional printing, making it essential for organizations with limited budgets. Wives who volunteered at schools or churches became experts at loading stencils, adjusting ink flow, and operating the hand-cranked or electric machines. The copies were often smudged and difficult to read, particularly after the first 100 copies when the stencil began deteriorating. The purple or blue ink was distinctive and somewhat official-looking despite the poor quality. The machines required maintenance, and the supplies were toxic, with the fluid causing headaches and nausea in poorly ventilated rooms. Errors couldn't be easily corrected, requiring entirely new stencils for major mistakes. Number 16. Maintaining brown shag carpeting. Wall-to-wall brown shag carpeting covered living rooms and bedrooms throughout 1970s homes, and wives vacuumed it constantly in a losing battle against embedded dirt. Online commenters described the decade as brown, orange, green, and shaggy, with carpeting that smelled weird, no matter how frequently it was cleaned. The long fibers trapped dirt, crumbs, pet hair, and debris, requiring specialized rake attachments for vacuum cleaners that pulled waste from deep within the pile. Food spills disappeared into the shag, only to be discovered weeks later as mysterious stains or odors. The carpeting was meant to feel luxurious and modern, like walking on thick grass, but it became dust repositories and allergen traps that aggravated asthma and allergies. Families walked barefoot on the deep pile, feeling the texture between their toes, and children used it as play surfaces for toys and games. The brown color was chosen specifically to hide stains, but it also made rooms feel darker and smaller than they actually were. Cleaning required regular vacuuming plus periodic deep shampooing that rarely fully cleaned the lower layers of fiber. Shag carpeting was expensive to install, often costing thousands of dollars for an entire home and even more expensive to remove when fashions changed. Number 15. Attending Saturday Night Live's early years. Saturday Night Live premiered in 1975, and wives stayed up late to watch the groundbreaking comedy show that redefined television humor. Online commenters specifically praise that early cast with John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, and others who created comedy that felt genuinely dangerous and unpredictable. The show was edgy and unpredictable, featuring satire that wouldn't appear on network television during prime time, political commentary mixed with absurdist humor, and musical performances from artists at their creative peaks. Wives recorded sketches in their memories to discuss with friends who missed episodes, since home recording technology was still primitive and expensive. The show provided cultural commentary through comedy, making political and social issues accessible and entertaining rather than preachy or academic. Characters like the Coneheads, the Blues Brothers, and Roseanne Dana became cultural touchstones referenced in everyday conversation. The late-time slot meant sacrificing sleep on Saturday nights, which was difficult for wives managing households and children's schedules on Sunday mornings. Some sketches bombed or ran too long, and the live format meant technical mistakes and forgotten lines happened on air, though this unpredictability was part of the appeal. The show occasionally crossed lines into offensive territory, particularly by modern standards, with humor that hasn't aged well. Number 14. Reading Judy Blume books. Judy Blume's novels became essential reading for 1970s women and their daughters, addressing puberty, sexuality, and family dynamics with unprecedented honesty that shocked some readers and liberated others. Wives read books like Wifey and Forever, while their daughters consumed Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Deanie, creating shared reading experiences across generations. Online commenters remember trading them back and forth between ourselves and feeling like the world felt big and exciting because the books addressed topics that families didn't discuss openly. The books tackled menstruation, sexual desire, masturbation, and marital dissatisfaction with frankness that shocked conservative readers and led to frequent censorship attempts. Blume's writing validated female experiences that were previously considered too embarrassing or inappropriate to discuss in literature, particularly literature marketed to young readers. Library copies were waitlisted for months, and girls passed dog-eared paperbacks among friends like contraband because the content felt forbidden and thrilling. The books faced frequent censorship attempts from parent groups who objected to the frank sexual content and challenged them in schools and libraries across the country. Some religious communities banned them entirely, which only increased their appeal to curious readers. Blume's explicit content made some readers uncomfortable, and critics argued the books were too mature for young audiences and encouraged premature sexual experimentation. Number 13. Participating in the Bicentennial celebration. 1976's American Bicentennial dominated the year with patriotic celebrations, and wives organized neighborhood parties, sewed American flag decorations, and attended local parades celebrating America's 200th birthday. Online commenters remember that everybody loved the Bicentennial, despite the decade's otherwise negative qualities like economic recession and political scandals. The celebration provided national unity during economically troubled times following Watergate, the Vietnam War, and the oil crisis. Towns painted fire hydrants red, white, and blue, and communities competed to display the most elaborate patriotic decorations. Special bicentennial quarters entered circulation with the colonial drummer design, and people collected them as commemorative items. Wives baked flag cakes using strawberries and blueberries, prepared themed meals, and sewed bicentennial outfits for their families. Schools organized special programs, and children learned Revolutionary War songs and colonial crafts. The nationalism felt excessive to some, especially given ongoing Vietnam War controversies and recent revelations about government surveillance and deception. The merchandising was relentless and commercial, with everything from toilet paper to trash cans featuring bicentennial branding. Critics argued the celebration glossed over America's treatment of Native Americans and enslaved people, presenting a sanitized version of history. Number 12. Shopping at Photomat booths. Photomat drive-through kiosks dotted parking lots nationwide, and wives dropped off film canisters for developing without leaving their cars, making photo processing almost effortless. The small booths employed one person who processed orders, collected payment, and managed inventory in cramped quarters. Developing took several days to a week, requiring a return trip to collect prints and negatives stored in paper envelopes. The convenience of not entering a store appealed to busy women with children strapped in car seats who dreaded unloading everyone for a quick transaction. The service was faster than drugstore developing and comparable in price, typically charging around $5 for a roll of 24 exposures. The booth locations in shopping center parking lots meant wives could drop off film while running other errands, maximizing efficiency. The downside was weather exposure while waiting at the window, which was miserable during rain, snow, or extreme heat. Film could be lost or damaged, and there was no recourse beyond refunding the processing cost, leaving irreplaceable memories gone forever. There was no preview system, so wives paid for all prints regardless of quality, wasting money on blurry, poorly exposed, or accidentally blank shots. The limited interaction with employees meant no opportunity for advice about camera problems or film selection. Number 11. Using 8-track tapes. 8-track tapes were the portable music format in 1970s cars, and wives listened to them during errands and road trips, experiencing music mobility that previous generations only imagined. Online commenters list 8-track tapes among the crazy trends they remember from the decade. The cartridges contained 4 programs of 2 tracks each, with music divided into segments that sometimes interrupted songs mid-verse, creating jarring transitions. The tapes were durable and didn't require flipping like cassettes, allowing continuous play without manual intervention. Car manufacturers built 8-track players into dashboards as standard or optional equipment, legitimizing the format. The sound quality was acceptable for automotive environments with road noise, though audiophiles complained about the compromised fidelity. Wives created custom playlists by recording from vinyl records onto blank 8-tracks, though the process was time-consuming and required careful timing. The format's problems were significant. Tapes jammed frequently, requiring pencils inserted into the visible reels to manually rewind them. Audio quality degraded quickly with repeated playing as the magnetic coating wore away. The track switching disrupted listening flow, sometimes cutting off important lyrics or instrumental sections at inopportune moments. The cartridges were bulky compared to later cassettes and expensive to purchase, costing several dollars per tape. 8 tracks represented a transitional technology between vinyl records and cassette tapes, serving a crucial but brief function in music's evolution toward portability. Number 10. Wearing bell-bottom jeans. Bell-bottoms became the default pants style for the decade, and wives wore them for everything from grocery shopping to parent-teacher conferences to casual social gatherings. Online commenters remember bell-bottoms as a wild 70s trend that defined the decade's fashion as completely as any single item could. The flared leg balanced wide hips and created a vertical silhouette that was universally flattering regardless of body type. They were available in denim, corduroy, and polyester in every color imaginable, making them versatile wardrobe staples. The style was democratic, worn by all ages, classes, and subcultures from hippies to mainstream suburbanites. The exaggerated flare, sometimes reaching 22 inches at the hem, collected dirt and moisture from sidewalks and parking lots, creating permanent staining. The hems frayed quickly from dragging on the ground, requiring frequent trimming or replacement. The pants were impractical for athletic activities and dangerous around machinery or bicycles where the fabric could catch. Rain-soaked bell-bottoms became heavy and cold, clinging to legs uncomfortably. Bell-bottoms represented fashion's embrace of youth culture and rejection of 1960s conservatism, signaling social change through clothing choices. The extreme width was partly practical for wearing over platform shoes and boots popular during the same period. The style disappeared suddenly when straight-leg jeans returned in the early 1980s as part of a broader conservative shift in fashion and culture. Number 9. Watching Happy Days. Happy Days premiered in 1974 and became must-see television for families, with wives watching alongside their children in a rare moment of genuinely shared entertainment. Online commenters list it among their favorites, and note that sitcoms were popular with the Fonz as a cultural phenomenon who transcended the show itself. The show nostalgically depicted 1950s Milwaukee, offering comfort during uncertain 1970s times by presenting a sanitized, simplified past. The Fonzie character became an icon of cool masculinity, with his leather jacket and thumbs-up gesture copied by children across America. The program was wholesome family entertainment with clear moral lessons wrapped in gentle humor that didn't challenge or disturb viewers. The show launched careers for Ron Howard and Henry Winkler and spawned multiple spin-offs, including Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy. The Cunningham family represented an idealized nuclear family that felt increasingly outdated as divorce rates climbed and family structures diversified. The downside was the show's sanitized version of history that ignored 1950s racism, sexism, and conformity, presenting an entirely white, middle-class vision of America. The formulaic plots became predictable. Fonzie solves problems, Richie learns lessons, and everything resolves neatly by episode's end. The show jumped the shark literally and figuratively in later seasons, with the famous episode where Fonzie water skis over a shark becoming synonymous with declining quality. Number 8. Watching The Mary Tyler Moore Show. The Mary Tyler Moore Show revolutionized television by centering an unmarried career woman who wasn't desperately seeking a husband, and wives watched religiously from 1970 to 1977. Online commenters provide extensive praise decades later. Still stands up today. Comedy Gold, best assembled comedic cast, with multiple users saying they binged and enjoyed it through streaming services. Mary Richards became a role model for women considering careers beyond housewifery, demonstrating that single working women could have fulfilling lives. The show addressed workplace dynamics, friendship, and independence with sophistication rare in sitcoms before or since. The writing was sharp without being mean, and the ensemble cast was perfectly balanced with no weak performers. The show tackled serious topics like equal pay, age discrimination, and journalistic ethics while remaining genuinely funny. Ted Baxter's character provided comic relief while satirizing shallow television personalities. The downside was that some found Mary's character too accommodating and passive, always putting others' needs before her own in ways that reinforced traditional female behavior. The show sometimes avoided controversial topics that other Norman Lear productions tackled directly, preferring gentle humor to sharp social commentary. The program's vision of workplace equality was aspirational rather than realistic, given actual 1970s discrimination. Number 7. Dealing with the gas crisis. The 1973 oil embargo created gas shortages that forced wives to wait in hours-long lines at service stations, fundamentally disrupting daily routines and family logistics. Odd-even rationing based on license plate numbers determined which days drivers could purchase fuel, adding complexity to trip planning. Wives planned shopping trips carefully to conserve gas, combining errands into single outings rather than making multiple trips throughout the week. Carpooling became essential for getting children to school, activities, and appointments, requiring coordination with other families. The crisis created anxiety about running out of gas far from home, particularly for wives managing family transportation without backup vehicles. Stations ran out of fuel unpredictably, forcing drivers to waste gas searching for open pumps. Tempers flared at stations, and occasional violence erupted as desperate drivers competed for limited supplies. Some stations implemented purchase limits or closed early after exhausting inventory. The shortage ended when the embargo lifted, but higher prices remained permanently, changing Americans' relationship with driving. Small, fuel-efficient Japanese imports gained market share from American gas guzzlers, beginning Detroit's long decline. Number 6. Using Bonnie Bell Lip Smackers. Bonnie Bell Lip Smackers became the flavored lip balm every wife and daughter owned, with tubes in Dr. Pepper, strawberry, and root beer scents scattered through purses, bathroom drawers, and car cup holders. Online commenters remember Bonne Bell in the 1970s, with great scents that defined an era of beauty products focused on fun rather than sophistication. The balms were affordable, under $1 per tube, making them accessible impulse purchases at drugstore checkout counters. The flavors made reapplication enjoyable rather than medicinal, transforming basic skincare into a pleasurable experience. They were marketed to teenagers, but purchased by women of all ages who appreciated the nostalgia and accessibility. The original flavors expanded to dozens of varieties, including Tootsie Roll, bubblegum, and various fruits, creating collectability. The balms came in distinctive round pots and slender tubes that were instantly recognizable and easy to carry. The scents were artificial and overwhelming to some, particularly in closed spaces like cars or small rooms. The balms melted in hot cars and stained clothing when forgotten in pockets before washing. They provided minimal actual moisture compared to plain petroleum jelly, requiring frequent reapplication that was more habit than necessity. Number 5. Copying Farrah Fawcett's hair. Farrah Fawcett's feathered hairstyle became the most requested cut of the decade after her Charlie's Angels poster sold millions of copies to teenagers and adults alike. Wives spent hours with curling irons and blow dryers trying to replicate the windswept layers that appeared effortless but required substantial skill and time. Maintaining the look required Aquanet hairspray, hot rollers, considerable morning time, and often professional help from hairdressers who became experts at the cut. The style flattered most face shapes and suggested effortless glamour that was simultaneously sophisticated and approachable. It represented accessible celebrity style that regular women could approximate with the right tools and dedication, unlike previous eras when celebrity looks required professional maintenance. Salons reported unprecedented demand for the Farrah, with stylists perfecting techniques for achieving the distinctive feathered layers. The downside was the daily maintenance routine that added 30 minutes or more to morning preparations. The heat damage to hair from constant blow drying and curling iron use was significant, causing split ends and breakage. The look required perfect timing and technique. Too much curl looked dated and helmet-like. Too little looked unkempt and undone. Number 4. Fighting workplace sexual harassment. Without legal protection, wives who worked outside the home faced workplace sexual harassment with no legal recourse until 1977, enduring behaviors that would trigger immediate termination today. Online commenters note that sexual harassment as grounds for legal action was in 1977, meaning most of the decade offered no protection, no recourse, and no acknowledgement that the behavior was wrong rather than normal. Women endured unwanted advances, crude comments, physical touching, and quid pro quo demands from supervisors with limited options beyond quitting. Speaking up meant risking termination, being labeled a troublemaker, or being blamed for inviting attention. Human resources departments didn't exist to address complaints in most companies, and management often sided with male employees over female complainants. The culture normalized male behavior that would now trigger immediate firing and possible legal action, treating it as harmless flirtation or compliments women should appreciate. Women developed coping strategies, ignoring comments, dressing conservatively, avoiding certain colleagues, never being alone with particular supervisors, and warning other women about dangerous men. Number 3. Facing pregnancy discrimination. Getting fired for becoming pregnant was legal and common practice throughout most of the 1970s, until the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 finally provided protection. Online commenters reference this amendment to the civil rights as a crucial change that seems obvious now, but was revolutionary then. Wives concealed pregnancies as long as possible, through loose clothing and denial to avoid termination and loss of income during the most expensive time. Employers openly stated pregnancy as the reason for firing without fear of legal consequences, viewing pregnant women as temporarily disabled workers not worth retaining. Women lost health insurance precisely when they needed it most for prenatal care and delivery, forcing families to pay enormous medical bills or forego proper care. They lost seniority and pension contributions built over years, starting over at new jobs if they could find them. The discrimination was worst for unmarried pregnant women who faced moral judgment alongside employment loss, being labeled as deserving their fate. Some employers offered unpaid leave, but no job protection existed to guarantee positions would remain available after birth. Number 2. Watching Little House on the Prairie. Little House on the Prairie became the family viewing event from 1974 onward, with wives gathering their families every Monday night at 8 p.m. to watch the Ingalls family navigate frontier life. Online commenters list it among their favorites from the 1970s, representing wholesome entertainment the entire family enjoyed together in an era before cable fragmented viewing. The show provided moral lessons through historical stories, appealing to parents worried about television's negative influence on children's values. The pioneering family's struggles with poverty, illness, and natural disasters made contemporary problems seem manageable by comparison. Michael Landon's Charles Ingalls was an idealized father figure during an era of changing family structures and increasing divorce rates, offering stability and wisdom. The show portrayed rural life romantically, emphasizing community, hard work, and family bonds over material success. The prairie setting was beautiful, and the period costumes were detailed, creating visual appeal. The downside was the show's excessive sentimentality that frequently manipulated emotions through character deaths, illnesses, and tragedies. The historical accuracy was questionable, with modern sensibilities and dialogue imposed on 1870s characters. Number 1. Accepting the idealized housewife mindset. The contradictions between the idealized 1950s housewife image and 1970s reality created unique pressures for wives trying to maintain impossible standards while the culture shifted. Women were expected to keep pristine homes, prepare elaborate meals from scratch, maintain perfect appearances regardless of budget, and radiate contentment, despite the women's liberation movement revealing these expectations as oppressive and unfair. Online commenters note the irony, becoming a soulless 1950 tradwife drone, while all those 1950s housewives were on speed to maintain the facade of effortless perfection. The mindset demanded gratitude for circumstances that limited opportunities and personal development outside domestic spheres. Women who expressed dissatisfaction with limited roles were labeled ungrateful, selfish, or mentally ill, pathologizing normal responses to restrictive situations. The pressure to appear effortlessly competent while actually relying on amphetamines prescribed as mother's little helpers and tranquilizers like Valium was enormous and created health problems. Some women genuinely found fulfillment in domestic roles and resented feminist implications they were victims or brainwashed, creating tensions between women with different preferences. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.